All right, welcome everybody. I'm gonna go to Twitch and watch here. Waiting for folks to arrive, so I will. There we go. Hang a little bit. Usually, the way we do this anyway is I wait a few minutes for folks to arrive before I start the show anyway. But this is Ukraine Week in Review with John Aravosis of the Aravosis Report, and there you go. So let's wait a minute, and hopefully, folks are going to join us. And then once we get a critical mass in a few minutes, I will start the show. But just letting you guys know in case anybody arrives or comes later, I should say, and watches the recording and wonders what's going on. That's what's going on. So welcome all. Oops. I can't talk to you right now. Sister's calling. This is cute. Starting a show right now. Yep. I'm already live on Twitch, so let me go back to that. No one's there yet, so. Okay. Well, let me know. All right. Okay, bye. Since no one was here yet, I figured it was okay for me to talk to the sister. Anyway, like I said, we'll wait a few minutes. Hopefully folks arrive. Woo! Beep, beep, beep. Not my normal day, so that's the only concern here is it might be a little. Oh, I think a couple of you guys are there. Actually, do comment if you're here. But it looks like one or two people are here. My normal day is Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern that I do this, and normally we get double digits. Well, last time we had 30 to 60. I think at its peak we maybe even had 60. But anyway, 30 to 40 people at a time usually when I do this. But had to move it from yesterday to today because yesterday I was downtown Chicago with a nephew. Hey, Espy. Just explaining to folks, if anybody comes later and watches the review, the recording, that we were waiting a few. Oh, done. Good. Glad more people are showing up. I was a little worried doing this on Sunday wasn't going to be a great time to do it. No choice, because I was in Chicago yesterday. Hey, Ryan. And actually, any of you who know, we're waiting a minute, although I'm going to start in a minute. We got 11 people, which is good. I'm going to start in a second with the week in review. But anybody who knows Twitch, to maybe fill me in. I may have the settings wrong, but does Twitch not keep a copy of my video for like ever? I've got it set so like after 2 weeks, the videos disappear. Hey, Jens. And I don't know if that's my mistake or what. It might be my mistake. So I didn't realize. I've got Mom's jacket in the background too for added flavor. Anyway, is Cobra here? I would say Cobra would know. I was just saying, I'm going to start in a second, but before I do, 60 to 90 days. Okay. Currently, I've got it keeping my videos for like 2 weeks. So clearly, I've got something set wrong because I'd like to set it for longer, but it already lost the update I did 2 weeks ago. I pushed some button that said keep for 2 weeks, and I thought that was extending it. I think it diminished it. Anyway, let me start the show, and then later you guys maybe can tell me how I can change the settings. Hey, Ryan. All right, guys, let me get rolling here. So this is my weekend review show that I do on Twitch. Just started a few weeks ago, but looking to do this every weekend on Twitch at 1 p.m. Eastern, normally on Saturday morning. But because I had a nephew visiting with his fiance, I couldn't do that this Saturday. In any case, let's get rolling. There's it's funny actually because like I do these shows every night, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern on my other Twitch account and TikTok and everything else. My other Twitch account is Aravosis Report Daily. You can find it in my About section. But, and the dog's here, which means we're going to, all right. Which means anytime somebody walks by, I'm visiting Mom for another week. Anytime somebody walks by the house, we're going to have the dog go off. So just be aware. There's nothing I can do about it. Hey, Ryan. So in any case, yeah, so I'll be normally doing these Saturday mornings at 1 p.m. Eastern time US. All right, let's get rolling. So it's kind of funny though, because doing these every night, there's like a ton of news we talk about all week, a good hour plus each show, but was able to distill it down to, 8 big topics. And honestly, looking at them, that's about it, Okay, thanks, Cobra. I will open that and save it for later. There we go. Okay, I've got the article saved. I'll look at it later. Thank you for that. So affiliates is only 14 days. That's why. Okay, that's why. Well, that's obnoxious. God, they're really crazy with the stuff they do. Someday, I'm going to make a lot of money advising tech companies because that's just stupid. Switching to affiliate means my video is going away. Okay, that explains why it's only here 14 days. All right, guys, let's get rolling anyway. That's okay. What do you do? So annoying. All right, guys. So let's get rolling. So today is day 451 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day military operation in Ukraine. I am John Aravosis, the Aravosis Report, normally from Washington, D.C., but I'm visiting Mom for the month. So I'll be here in Chicago for another week and then back to splendid, not so splendid, actually, Washington. But let me go through. I pulled from my show in the last week what I consider the top stories. You guys have them listed there. There's 8 of them. Let's go through them. So big story of the week is the F-16s. Not surprising to anybody, although if you haven't been following the news, that's what this is about. So Ukraine forever has been begging the U.S. to send it F-16s, which are fighter jets. They're, decades old now, but they're still top of the line. Beat the bejesus out of the Russian MiGs. And Ukraine's been begging for them. The U.S. has been refusing. The reason, hard to know, because this is the same thing with tanks and long-range missiles and everything else. Honestly, forget what the U.S. says publicly. The big concern, I think, from the beginning has been Biden is worried about Putin. Unfortunately, but Biden's worried about Putin. Thank you. Hey, TBI Chris, welcome. And basically pissing off Putin. And escalation is the big word. Like, oh my God, if we give tanks, Putin will freak out. If we give long-range missiles, Putin will freak out. If we give F-16s, Putin will freak out. And the idea is Putin will get so mad that he'll use nuclear weapons or do something else stupid. I don't think that's even a possibility because we have nuclear weapons too. Putin's not, he's crazy, but he's not crazy, as I always say. He's not going to use them. But nonetheless, each step of the way, we've seen Biden worried, and not do it, and then doing it, right? We didn't want to give Stinger missiles, gave Stinger missiles. Didn't want to give HIMARS, gave HIMARS. Didn't want to give Patriot missiles batteries for defense, gave Patriot missile batteries, although it can be used for offense too, potentially. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Didn't want to give tanks, we're giving tanks. Didn't want to give F-16s, we're giving F-16s. And basically everything just gets dragged out so that Ukraine will get it, but doesn't get it a year ago when it could have used it. In any case, that's where we are with F-16s now. In the last week, a lot of news on this, but bottom line is Ukraine is going to get F-16s at this point. Not clear when, not clear from whom, not clear how many. Biden administration said that it is willing to join an international coalition that the Brits put together with the Dutch to help train Ukrainian pilots. That's good news, especially because the U.S. is sort of the big fish in terms of training. The Europeans, by one estimate, can maybe train 4 to 6 Ukrainian pilots in the next 6 months period. The training will probably take about 4 months plus. Whereas the U.S. could train possibly 40 pilots over that same period. Now, just coincidentally, the number of planes Ukraine says it needs are 40 to 50. So, in other words, the U.S. over the next 6 months, 4 to 6 months, could train all the pilots the Ukrainians need. If it's just up to the Europeans, they can't. Okay. So, very interesting with all of this. I mean, so where else with this? Oh, the training. Okay. So first of all, the training. One of the reasons the Biden administration put out there was, oh my God, we can't, actually, I want to respond to that in a second. Sorry, Vangador, I might as well respond to this. U.S. airplanes in Ukraine, are we crazy? No, we're not crazy. And we're not afraid of Putin. Basically, the Russians have been bluffing from the beginning of the war. I would say, what's the downside to giving Ukrainians, what's the downside? He may be a troll, and if he ends up being trolly, block him. Feel free to, especially if that video is something crazy, then just block him anyway and delete it. But I'm happy to respond to it because it's a fair point, and not a fair point, but it's a point people bring up. Oh my God. Well, what's the oh my God? What's going to happen if we give Ukraine planes? I mean, the Russians said if we gave them all those other weapons, it would be World War III. I don't see World War III. It's sunny out. I don't see any, fireballs. They said if we gave long-range missiles, right? World War III. No, HIMARS, World War III. If Ukraine attacks Crimea, World War III. Ukraine's been attacking Crimea nonstop. My favorite was, I don't know if my map is going to be, is it the right way? Let's see if the map is the right way. Hopefully it's not backwards. Russians, I'm waiting for it to catch up the video. There we go. It's the right way. So the Russians control all of this in Ukraine. Okay. 17% of Ukraine. And what they did was they did this with Crimea earlier, and then they declared all of the new territory they grabbed over the last year. It's now Russia, they said, right? This is all Russia. And they made it, even though no one accepts it legally. Legally, it's not Russia, but the Russians claim it's Russia. So from their perspective, they're claiming now, I'm going to reboot my page just to see if the video catches up. They're claiming that if Ukraine were to take back any of that territory, they would be attacking Russia. And if they attack Russia, it's World War III. Well, for the last 6 months, Ukraine's been attacking that territory. Actually, 8 months now, I think. Nothing happened. Ukraine even took back territory in Kharkiv. They took back territory in Kherson, which is in the south there. In other words, from the Russian perspective, they literally stole Russian territory and made it Ukraine again. Totally untrue, but from the Russian territory. And Russia didn't go nuclear. So my question is, what's Putin going to do if we give planes? He's going to do the same thing he did with everything else we've given Ukraine. It's like, what? Charlie Brown teacher, wah, 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 nuclear, wah, 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 World War III, wah, 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 big deal, and doesn't do a damn thing. And he's not going to do a damn thing. So there you go. I don't know. Well, your comment is the second thing that makes you sound like a troll. But anyway, I'm going to let that go. But let's say, just it's fine. Don't be a troll, because we get trolls all the time is the reason, Vangadorp. That's why people thought you were a troll, because all the freaking time we get trolls. And honestly, they're usually the ones bringing this up. But that's fine. If you're not, stay and don't be a troll, and you'll be fine. That's fine. Then you're fine. Then don't worry about it. But you're the rare person disagreeing who isn't a troll. That's why people thought you were a troll. Especially my other channels. On TikTok, I've got 500,000 followers, and it's nonstop Russian trolls. That's why they were assuming some of them came here. So you're fine. Hang and that's fine. In any case, so that's my question back to you. But I was assuming perhaps you weren't a troll, which is why I answered your question. People got to figure, what's Russia going to do if we give these planes, right? Now, we can talk about this too. Nukes. I mean, again, I sort of tried to be the weekend review here, but I don't mind getting into some of these detailed topics. What's Russia going to do? Use its nukes? Why would they do that? All the defense experts say that there's no advantage to Russia using nukes in Ukraine. I mean, zero. It's not going to help them from a strategic perspective, from like a military perspective. Using nukes won't help Russia at all. I mean, it'll go boom, boom and scare people and kill people, but it's not going to help them. Russia claims all this territory that I was pointing out is Russia. So why would they nuke their own territory? Why would they nuke their own citizens, right? I mean, nukes leave radiation. Like, you got to clean it up. Typically one does not nuke one's own territory. So that doesn't make sense. If Russia nukes those areas, then you've got the problem of America entering the war and NATO entering the war. All the experts think America will. Now, I worry a little bit with Biden. To what degree Biden will or won't, my allergies are going nuts, of course, but to what degree Biden will or won't get involved. But I don't think he has a choice if Russia were to use nukes or biological or chemical weapons. It would be such an affront. And the lesson sent to the world would be so great and so dangerous if Putin were to use those nukes, that basically it's okay to use tactical nuclear weapons, small nuclear weapons. I know it sounds funny to even say that those exist, but they do. There's the nuclear weapon that can blow up an entire city, and there's the nuclear weapon that's small and can be used to blow up a military headquarters or a dam or something like that, right? So it's localized damage, but it's still nuclear. It's scary and it's radiation. If Putin uses those, we've got to enter the war, because we've got to send the world a message that this is not acceptable. We've got to send that message to the Chinese, Taiwan, right? You don't want the Chinese thinking, hey, if we use nukes, America and Europe's going to go, well, it's okay, right? You also don't want the message sent to, obviously, India and Pakistan, other countries that have nukes. You don't want the message sent to prospective nuclear countries. We don't want other countries getting nukes, right? Everyone's been freaking out about Iran. You don't want to send the message that, hey, if you get nukes, you actually can use them. And the West is going to kind of go, we don't like it, but right? It's because then it provides more of an incentive for you to get the nukes. Anyway, so lots of reasons why if Putin used nukes, it would be really bad for him. No reasons really explaining why it would be good. Anyway, back to the news. So F-16s. The big question then is, where is Ukraine getting the F-16s from? The U.S. has said we're not going to send them, but we would approve for our allies to send them. Basically, the U.S. makes them. And the way it works with weapons sales or weapons transfers is the party, my allergies are going nuts today, excuse me. The party selling the weapons or giving them gets to decide where they go next. In other words, if I sell you my F-16s as an American, you cannot just give them away to somebody else. You can't, you can't sell them to somebody else without my permission. How do I stop you? Well, either I'm bigger than you militarily and I could bomb you or bomb the planes, or I could just, two dogs walking by. All right. I think I warned you. Well, anybody who's new here, I have a dog. She's lovely. But okay. All good. Okay. And when I'm visiting my mom, because at my place in DC, I've got a condo that she can't really see people on the street, and Mom, she can see everybody on the street. So I get the warning all day. Okay. Thank you. All good. Okay. All right. She's better now. But the question is where the planes are coming from. It looks like so the U.S. would have to approve of the F-16s going from Greece or whichever of our European allies has them to Ukraine. The U.S. has said they would approve, which is good. Now, we don't know which countries are willing to give their F-16s. I mean, we know which ones have said they might, but that's a question. How many will they give? That's a question. When will they give them? That's a question. When will this training start on the F-16 pilots? Now, one really good bit of news this week was a study or review from the Pentagon that was leaked or given, probably intentionally, to Yahoo News, said that earlier this year, and if you've been following the news regularly, you might have seen this story, but we were wondering what was going on with it. But basically, 2 Ukrainian pilots came to the U.S. and they weren't trained on F-16s, they were tested on an F-16 simulator. And at the time we were all looking at the story, and I ended up being right about this, I was saying, I wonder if we're testing them to see how good they are, to give us a sense of, is this doable? Right? Now, first of all, I would say that's interesting that they were even brought several months ago, because it means there might have been a little bit of a window or something. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if what happened there was Biden administration was opposed, and whoever was pushing it, probably Secretary Blinken, our Secretary of State, who's been very good about pushing these additional weapon systems, probably said, look, you say it's going to take too long. You say it's too complicated for the Ukrainians. Let's test a few of the Ukrainian pilots and see. And probably, because it would be very difficult for somebody making that argument to say, no, let's not find out. I'm saying they can't do it. Let's not find out if they can, right? So you'd have to say, okay, fine. Well, they brought 2 Ukrainian pilots over, tested them on F-16 simulators, and they did amazingly well. They had problems with the language because the F-16, so computerized and everything that the screen is a lot of English, and they didn't know the English. But within 2 weeks of training and testing, they learned a lot. So they said they think the English will be fine. They'll just have to learn it over 4 months. The plane itself, they did remarkably well. They did things where like the engine died, the engine went into a stall, like all sorts of different disaster scenarios, and the pilots did great. The assessment finally concluded, and these were, I think, 4 top F-16 pilot trainers of the U.S., determined that it would only take 4 months of training for existing Ukrainian pilots, not for somebody who's never flown, but for existing Ukrainian pilots who know how to fly MiG-29s, which are the Soviet jets that they inherited when they left the Soviet Union in 1991, that it would only take them 4 months of training to become proficient at using the F-16. A lot better than the 18 months that the naysayers in the administration were claiming before. So all of that broke this week, which means Ukrainians could have these planes in 4 to 5 months. Now, mind you, what would really be cool is if the U.S. were already training some of these people and we didn't even know it. Hope springs eternal, maybe, right? In any case, F-16. Okay, that's the F-16 story, but huge news, really important. Second big story is Bakhmut. Bakhmut's been big news in the last day, especially. Hang on, a little water. But also for the last 11 months, Bakhmut is a Ukrainian town, eastern Ukraine, right here. Actually, I can even get closer with you guys because you guys are just one of you. There are one of you, I should say, meaning I'm not doing TikTok. So Bakhmut's right there. Remember what I told you, the Russians control this. So Bakhmut is right on the fringe between Russian-controlled and Ukraine-controlled. All of this is Ukraine, of course. And the Russians have been trying to take this town of Bakhmut for 11 months. The funny thing is, this town doesn't matter. I always sort of say this, and I know it upsets the Ukrainians, but there are pretty much no experts in the West, really, who think this town matters. People cannot figure out, strategically, of course, I'm sure it's a nice place, or was, before the Russians destroyed it. It's a small town of 60,000 people. Doesn't make sense. Hey, Malayathos, doesn't make sense why the Russians were going so crazy trying to take it. 11 months of them trying to take it. The experts say that basically, for example, from here, the Russians would want to go to Kramatorsk, and I forget if it's Sloviansk or what's that's right north of Kramatorsk, but the Russians would want to go to Kramatorsk and Sloviansk. The only thing is you wouldn't go there from Bakhmut because it's uphill, it's in the open, everything, only 2 roads, the vehicles will all get destroyed. This is not where you'd go. You'd go from somewhere further south, you'd go from somewhere further north, but you wouldn't go from Bakhmut. Bakhmut does nothing to help the Russians strategically. They have been going after Bakhmut, we believe, for bragging rights, that basically, now, Prigozhin himself might have been the reason. Prigozhin is the Russian oligarch, rich billionaire who runs the mercenary group called the Wagner Group. Wagner has been the main fighting force in Bakhmut, and it's possible that Prigozhin, first of all, because they were fighting there, And he's been fighting with the Ministry of Defense in Russia, trying to basically show them up because he's a mercenary. They're soldiers for hire, right? So trying to show his men are better than the regular Russian troops fighting in Ukraine. He didn't want to give up and say, well, we can't win Bakhmut because then he's a loser. And right, he's in this pissing match basically with the Russian ministry, with a defense ministry. So that was the first reason. He just insisted on fighting and fighting and fighting. Secondly, some of the thinking is he's so pissed off the Ministry of Defense that the Ministry of Defense was like, "You're not leaving. We're not just going to keep you there to keep you dying, but we're going to keep sending more Wagner troops to Bakhmut so that you keep dying and dying and dying, and basically we kill your power base, right? You're this independent guy, although in Russia nothing's totally independent, right? It's a dictatorship. Putin controls everything, but still, you're this guy with your own fighting force, 50,000 men or whatever. That's a little dangerous in a dictatorship. Somebody who's got 50,000 fighters who are top of the line fighters who are beholden to him, right? Not the kind of thing you want in a dictatorship. So they were throwing all these men at Bakhmut. The Ministry of Defense was to kill them. So basically minimizing the size of the fighting force that Prigozhin had if he ever wanted to challenge Putin, something else like that, right? So that's one of them. Then there's also the possibility there are some mines there, mines, gypsum and salt. Prigozhin does, his group does have an interest in diamond mines and things like that in Africa, using it for extra money. So it's possible he wanted these mines for financial reasons. But anyway, it's ridiculous. The Russians have been fighting for 11 months. In the last couple days, actually the last day, the Russians have been claiming they finally captured it. Maybe not. It's possible Ukraine still controls a small percentage of it. It is also entirely possible that in 2 weeks, Ukraine's going to get a lot of it back. The Ukrainians have been playing a very smart cat and mouse game with Bakhmut from the beginning. Even though the town doesn't matter, the Ukrainians surmised correctly at the beginning that Bakhmut was a really bad place for the Russians to be fighting. Generally speaking, when you are a defender in battle, or especially I think in a town, but you're looking at like 3-to-1, not 3-to-1 odds, but 3-to-1 deaths, meaning the person attacking you will lose 3 men for every 1 person the defender is going to lose, right? So 3 Russians die for every 1 Ukrainian dying. In Bakhmut, the number could have been as high as 5-to-1, 7-to-1, or 10-to-1. NATO says around 5-to-1. Ukrainians are saying 7-to-10, meaning even if you just look at the NATO numbers, more conservative, for every 1 Ukrainian dying defending Bakhmut, 5 Russians are dying attacking Bakhmut. That is horrific. I mean, absolutely horrific. And it means that the Ukrainians correctly assessed. They said, look, we got to fight the Russians somewhere anyway. If they don't fight us in Bakhmut, they're going to fight us in some other town. If I've got to fight you anyway, why don't I fight you in the area that is most to my advantage, right? If I, Ukraine, have got to fight these same Russian troops, would I rather fight them in a town where 3 Russians die for every 1 of my men, or would I rather fight them in a town where 5 Russians die for every 1 of my men? Well, obviously you'd fight them in the town where 5 Russians die. That's Bakhmut. So the thinking is that that's probably the main reason Zelensky kept having his troops fight there, because the Russians were dumb enough to want it for some strange reason, and more Russians die there than anywhere else. So, right, it's more to your advantage if you fight there if you're Ukrainian. So that's the thinking. Now, where this leaves things, maybe Bakhmut has been taken by the Russians, maybe not. Okay. Oh, you finally got rid of him. Was he finally a troll? Okay. Yeah, he's a troll. Oh, well, I figured he was. What do you do? Hey, I always say, sorry, we had a troll in the comments. I always say, I always tell the mods too, it's funny, the moderators, a troll will reveal themselves. Like, you get a whiff of them at the beginning and you think they're a troll, but don't block right away, because sometimes it's people who just disagree. Somebody had a bad day. Sometimes you're misreading them. Like, I've had people say, like, he's crazy, and they didn't mean me, they meant Putin or something. So, but you always give a troll a chance, because by the second or third comment, usually they show themselves, because they're not there to engage in an interesting debate that they disagree. That's not why they're there. They're there to spew. Oh, well, bye-bye. Okay, so Bakhmut. So yeah, so the thinking is Ukraine very wisely hurt and killed a lot of Russian troops there. Biden said the number today. Biden said the number is 100,000. This was interesting. There was a previous assessment a few weeks ago, or a statement by the White House, that they didn't backtrack, but they kind of said it inartfully, where they were talking about the fact that something around this, about the 100,000 or so, 80,000, whatever it was, troops in that Russia lost since December in Bakhmut. they meant since December in the war overall. But Biden said 100,000 casualties, meaning military term casualty means wounded or killed. Doesn't mean just killed, right? So wounded or killed. But the Biden said that 100,000 Russians either died or were wounded fighting for Bakhmut in the last 11 months. That is atrocious. That is almost half, little less than half probably, of the Russian killed and wounded in Ukraine since the war began. And half of their killed and wounded are in a town of 60,000 people that serves no strategic or military interest whatsoever. I mean, that is idiotic. And again, if you're Ukrainian, you go, okie dokie, right? So that's what the Ukrainians were fighting there. Final point here in terms of how smart it was for what Ukraine did. The other thing is not just killing the Russian troops and everything else, but Russia has now expended its top troops. Its top troops are exhausted. The Wagner troops were some of their top troops. They're exhausted. Prigozhin already said he's going to take his guys back for a while and get them sort of rejuvenated, et cetera, reconstituted. Ukraine, on the other hand, has kept somewhere between 50 and 100,000 new troops, including some senior soldiers running the new troops, but they've got troops ready to go, well-rested, ready to fight, and they've kept them on the sidelines. They haven't used them in Bakhmut or anywhere else because they're getting ready for this counteroffensive, this big counterattack the Ukrainians are doing, and they've, again, saved 50 to 100,000 troops to throw in who are fresh and new against these Russians that are now exhausted. Very interesting. Anyway, all right, guys. Very interesting. So let's move on from Bakhmut. Zelensky at the Arab League. So I'm actually going a little long. It's funny. I didn't have that many topics, but I figured also because we've been talking about this all week, I can talk about each topic for a week itself. Zelensky did a lot of interesting trips over the last week. Last weekend, he went to Western Europe, Berlin, Germany, Bonn, I should say, not Berlin. I'm used to saying Berlin. Wait, I always forget this. The capital didn't move to Berlin finally, right? Is it still Bonn? I'm already forgetting this with Germany because when I was growing up, it was always Bonn because Germany, Berlin was taken over by the Soviets. Help me out here, folks. Is it Bonn or is it Berlin now? I was going to say, I'll call it Germany. One of you guys will know in the comments. Germany, Italy, France, and the UK. That the Zelensky visited, got a lot of new weapons promises. The Brits, among other things, are offering him long-range attack drones that can go over 200 kilometers, which would be like 120 miles. That's huge. The French are offering him additional light tanks. They also, from the French, very interesting, are offering him the French version of the Storm Shadow cruise missile. These are the new cruise missiles that the Brits offered the Ukrainians. They've already been using quite effectively in the last 2 weeks. The French and the Brits got together to create the Storm Shadow together, and there's a British version and a French version. They've already got the British version. Now they're getting the French version as well. These are missiles that can go, or cruise missiles that can go 200 miles or 300 kilometers. Huge because it means all of Ukraine now is within striking distance of the Ukrainians. So meaning the Russians are controlling all of this, right? Previously, the Ukrainians could not hit all of this or all of this because it was out of range. Now, all of this is in range, which means Russian weapons storage throughout here, Russian troop housing right through all of here, command and control, so Russian military headquarters, and just as importantly, Russian ships and submarines at port in Crimea, Russian bridges at Kerch. That's the one the Ukrainians blew up, we believe, last fall. Hugely important, this one, because Russia's over here and Russia's over here. Russia needs this bridge, like 11-mile bridge, something like that, 12-mile bridge, needs this bridge here in order to connect with Crimea, and the Ukrainians are surely going to blow it up again at some point, which is a huge deal. So big deal with these. Oh, actually, I was going to mention too. I've got to remember for the Twitch folks to mention. Well, you guys should know this, I guess, because of Amazon, you can become VIP members of my Discord by using your free Amazon Prime thingy. I'm going to explain this horribly. I'm assuming you guys know this better than I do. I actually did it with my own other Twitch account. So you can become a subscribing member of my Twitch feed. Use the Aravosis feed with your Amazon Prime account. And if anybody's got one and isn't using it, they'll explain to you how to do it here, and I'll get like half the revenue. It's not a lot. It's $5 a month, but it's still something. The good thing is that gives you VIP privileges on my Discord. which also I do a weekly thing in the morning just for subscribers. Like I did it this morning with my friend Vlad in Ukraine joins us, and we hang out on Discord and TikTok too, but you guys would be Discord in this case for the paid subscribers. I've also got a number of auctions on Discord that are very cool from Ukrainian stuff that I auction off. Half the proceeds go to Ukraine, half the proceeds go to support my work because I do this full time. And you're the only income I get is from all of you guys. There's a VIP auction section where only the VIPs get their stuff and can bid. So it keeps a smaller group, and you guys would be considered VIPs if you connected. Did you do that, Chris? Although I'm not seeing it, Chris. I see it next to Espy. See, Espy's got the crown next to him, but Ryan's got the crown. But Chris, yours is not doing that, just so you know. It's not showing your crown. Just so you know. So you may have connected it to my other one if you connected it. Basically, oops, did I pin? I didn't mean to pin. Unpin. Oops, did I just pin somebody? Unpin this message. There we go. Sorry, didn't mean to pin you. If you did, make sure you connect it to this account, to the Aravosis account, not the other one. Anyway, let's keep going. So Zelensky was traveling to Europe, got amazing arms package from the Germans, something like $2.3 billion with a B. All the experts were saying amazing arm package from the Germans. Italians, I don't recall it wasn't as big. French, the cruise missiles, like I said, light tanks, and the Brits, a lot of things, missiles and things, but also these long-range drones that are huge. Big deal. And finally, and then this weekend, Zelensky went to I think it was maybe Thursday and Friday, went to the Arab League summit in Saudi Arabia, invited as a special guest to Mohammed bin Salman, who's a mass murderer, but runs Saudi Arabia basically, and rather important man. So big deal for Zelensky to meet with him, for him to be invited to present his case to the other Arab leaders. Big deal. That was very important. And then went to the G7 this weekend, which are the top, pretty much the top Western economies, more or less. Yeah, there were MLRS from Norway. Yes, some new missile systems from Norway as well that are very important. Yes, I didn't mean to leave those out on bot. But anyway, big deal. And like I said, G7 this weekend, where he got to meet a number of the other leaders, Japanese Prime Minister, South Korean Prime Minister, Indonesian Prime Minister, and maybe is it president in Brazil? I think it's president, not prime minister. In Brazil, Lula, although Lula's an idiot. So we'll see. Lula's been causing he's uncomfortable meeting Zelensky because Lula's basically anti-Ukraine. He's trying to be in the middle, but for him, into middle means blaming NATO and the West and Ukraine for starting the war. He's an idiot. He's better than Bolsonaro, who is MAGA, but we pretty much went in Brazil from MAGA right to like a Glenn Greenwald left, where both are basically anti-US interests, which is too bad, and European interests, and therefore anti-Ukraine. But we're putting a lot of pressure on him, and the US has a ton of pressure with the Brazilian military because they rely on us. So there's a lot of pressure within Brazil to say, you know what, you may be anti-American, but a lot of them aren't. The hypersonic missiles, other big story. So Russia's got these missiles, or do they, frankly, is the question. Russia's got these missiles that they've been bragging about forever. Oh, funny. Well, we can always block somebody if somebody's being a troll on TikTok, a real troll, just block them, The hypersonic missiles, in principle, hypersonic missiles have to be missiles that can go more than 5 times the speed of sound, Mach 5, right? So again, miles per hour, I think speed of sound is like 550, something like that. So you're talking 2,500 miles an hour, right? I know that's the speed of sound. Hold on. What's the speed of sound? No. What is the speed of sound? Meters per second? That's not helpful. Meters per second. Okay, thanks. Like I'm European. In any case, I'm pretty sure it's like 550, 600 miles an hour. That was too funny. And the first time, sometimes the iPhone drives me a little nuts here. In any case, I'm sure it's around that. So hypersonic missiles should go. No. This is Mom's dog, who in the middle of my lives, usually it's when I do the lives at night, she comes in and decides she wants attention. And then my dog gets pissed off and starts growling at her. What do you want? Huh? You want to come here? Come here if you want. Come here. Come here. Come here. And then she won't come over. She'd rather just sit over there and be a little bit of a biatch. So if she starts barking, I'm going to pick her. My dog's going over to tell her to stay the hell away. This is going to be interesting. All right, stop. Sasha, leave her alone. Sorry, I have to peruse the dogs because I'm visiting mom. And okay, well, come. Hey, come here. Go, Glop. Get over here. Jesus. Oh, she's such a jerk. And now, I mean, she's a nice dog, but now she's walking away. She wanted my attention. I went to pick her up and she went beep, 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 beep. Anyway, hypersonic missiles. Bottom line is Russia's had these for a while, been telling everybody, big scary missiles. They go 10 times the speed of sound, 5,000 miles an hour, 7,500 kilometers an hour. You'll never be able to stop them. Ukraine stopped them. Ukraine using the Patriot missile systems the first week, like 2 weeks ago, stopped one of the missiles, and the Russians were beside themselves, denied it, and then they were like, okay. And then last week, Ukraine stopped 6 in one night, 6 of the hypersonic missiles being shot at Kyiv. Amazing. 781 miles an hour? Get out. No way. No way. Hang on again. What is the speed of sound in miles? Okay. What is the speed of sound in miles per hour? Asking my iPad to see if it's
One sec.
Any better.
Here's an answer from softschools.
767. Okay, you're right. Okay,
the speed of sound.
That's funny. I don't know why I was thinking 550. Okay, bad me. It is a little off if it's 760. Why was I thinking 550 at sea level? Yeah, but what's it? I was thinking in the air when they're flying, it's like 550. I thought. Who knows? Okay, who knows? Although I don't really care at sea level. What's it when you're flying? Is there any great difference when you're flying? And I don't really care, but I for sure thought when you're flying, it's 550. In any case, bottom line is, so that would be, it's got to go at least 4. Stop. I'm not playing with you right now. No, this is cute because mom's dog is begging. Now my dog got up from her little nap and decided she's going to beg me to play ball with her. In any case, the Russia, they don't. These missiles might not even be hypersonic. Either way, the Patriot is that good, but it shot down all the Russian missiles. The Russians are freaking. They denied it. They claimed they blew up like 5 or 6 Patriot. I mean, they just lied left and right about what they did. They didn't. They also claimed that they destroyed a Patriot missile battery in Kyiv. They didn't. One missile, U.S. sent experts out to check it out. One missile battery in Kyiv, or maybe the missile battery, depending how many there are, was slightly damaged, but they were able to fix it right away and it stayed operational. The other thing that might have happened this week with the, which might have happened this week, which is very interesting, is the someone shot down, we knew this from last weekend, okay? Stop. Someone shot down 6, there you go, good girl. Okay, my dog is back to sitting next to me on the chair. Someone shot down 5 Russian planes last weekend. 4 of them for sure were in the same, unit. I don't know whether the 5th one was, but 4 of them were flying from Ukraine to, from Russia to Ukraine on a bombing raid to attack jets, to helicopters. The helicopters had electronics to basically block the Russian missiles. Sorry, I'm petting my dog as I'm talking to you. Okay, you fine now? I'm trying to keep her calm. Had electronics to block Ukrainian surface-to-air missiles. There, she's shaking. Surface-to-air missiles attacking the Russian jets. The helicopters went really high to extend their range. They get shot down. The planes get shot down. All the crew, the pilots, everybody gets killed, which is a big deal because it's bad enough to lose the planes, but to lose the pilots and the crew who have been training for years, huge loss. Initially, our thinking was that the Russians shot them down themselves, screwing up, which is entirely possible and bad. There was another school of thought that the Ukrainians shot them down, which would be just as bad for Russia because these guys were also still over Russian territory. They were coming to Ukraine, but they were still over Russia. Well, okay, a little bit less. Yeah, that's fine. Thanks, Pine. Appreciate that. Well, the thinking now might be, there was an article in the New York Times mentioning something about the Ukrainians having shot down at least one plane with the missile battery, with the Patriots. And the thinking is possibly, this is a possible, we don't know, possibly the Ukrainians knew the flight path the Russians tend to take, right? That they come over this certain part of Russia, right? Bombing raid coming over Ukraine, and moved one of their missile batteries, one of their Patriot missile batteries, to the border, waiting for the Russians. And when the Russian planes got within range, even though they were in Russia, Ukraine turned on the Patriot and it shot down all 4 planes right away, 2 planes, 2 helicopters right away. And then that extra plane too. We don't know. would be, it's very Ukrainian. I mean, let's face it, just describing it sounds like something the Ukrainians would do, because they're always basically finding, cool ways to use weapons in ways we didn't think of. The idea of taking a Patriot missile battery and rather than using it defensive, in other words, rather than just using it for defending a city or part of a city or the ministry or whatever, and not really a city, but usually like of an area, right? The president's palace, whatever it is. But using it to affirmatively, proactively go after Russian planes who aren't expecting you is an offensive move, not really a defensive move, and is just brilliant anyway. So I would like to think the Ukrainians did that. We don't know, but pretty freaking cool if they did. Lukashenko has been ill this week. We don't know. There you go, Chris. Now you got it. It gave me the notice that you subscribed with Prime. Perfect. Thank you for that. Oh, and obviously, if you already subscribe on TikTok, on Discord, you can still just use it goes month to month. You got to renew it every month. You can use that here. Now, I get less because the subscriptions are less over here. And let me just say, Twitch takes half the money. They do the same BS that a TikTok does. They take 50%, 50, which is obscene, frankly. And it kind of bugs me because Twitch isn't TikTok. Twitch is like a tech community, you know what I mean? Like of cool people, and they still take half the money, which is really bad. So just be aware of that. So like on Discord, when you subscribe, they get 10% of the money versus 50%. So I don't want everybody unsubscribing in Discord and subscribing here instead. But if you only do here because this is where you hang out, that's okay. And if you want to add it here, that's okay too. Just keep that in mind. But anyway, Chris, yeah. So in principle, that should have automatically made you a Twitch farmer with a tractor category over on the Discord. We can check after the show. I'll try to look as well, which then gives you access to stuff, which anyway, you get it. Lukashenko. So Lukashenko, thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. I thought you did because I remember your name. Yeah, thank you for that. Lukashenko. So Lukashenko is XP. Thanks, XP. I appreciate that. Lukashenko is the dictator of Belarus. Belarus dictatorship just north of west of Ukraine, right here. Russia, keep in mind, is here. Lukashenko, big in bed with Putin. It's basically a puppet government for Putin. And very ill this week. Nobody knows how ill or what. Was kind of out of pocket for a few days. A lot of discussion about his health because he's a dictator. And finally kind of went public a couple of days later, but looked awful and sounded awful. I mean, sounded absolutely awful. So who knows what's up with him? TikTok does take a ridiculous amount of the money too. The one good thing I will say with TikTok, though, TikTok takes an absurd amount of the money, but in TikTok's case, you get the economies of scale. So that actually a lot of my income does come from TikTok because people buy so many gifts, which is great, that it ends up being decent income, even though it bothers me how much TikTok takes. People don't provide the same amount of money through Patreon gifts and things like that. So it's still worth doing it on TikTok, but it's a lot. It's bad. Yeah, it's bad. Lukashenko, yeah, we'll see what happens. Be nice if he were to go away, but at the same time, in a dictatorship, you never know who's coming next. So you always want to be careful with that. The grain deal was extended. This is the deal by which Ukraine is able to export some of its grain through the Black Sea down here. Okay, ports right here, Odessa, another port here, and then they go through the Bosporus Strait of like Turkey, and I forget, is it Bulgaria there maybe at that point? Bulgaria, or probably Bulgaria, I'm guessing at that point. But Turkey, Greece, Turkey and Greece, but Bulgaria up there. Turkey and Greece, and then into the Mediterranean. The Russians keep shutting it off or threatening to shut it off, and then they reach a deal to extend it. And they extended it again for 60 days, which means the Russians will be playing games in 60 days to try to shut it down again. Pentagon found another $3 billion for Ukraine. Basically, they're saying that through an accounting error, which may be true, it may not be, but it might be, they gave the wrong value of some of the weapons they were giving Ukraine. And because they're authorized to only, each time Congress passes this, authorized to give Ukraine a certain amount of weapons or certain dollar amount, if they, for example, it's like your credit card, okay? Your credit card says, in this case, your credit card says you could spend $50 billion. You spend $50 billion. Later, you look back and go, oh my God, I didn't spend $50 billion. I spent $47 billion because that thing I thought I bought for whatever amount, it didn't cost this much. It only cost this much. So I actually have $3 billion in credit left on my credit card I can spend. That's what the Pentagon is saying with regards to the arms transferred to Ukraine, because they're saying we overestimated the price of some of the stuff we sent by $3 billion, which means we didn't hit our limit, or wherever they are right now, we're actually 3 billion below where we thought we are. That's another 3 billion we can send. Hopefully it's true. Hopefully Congress doesn't freak out, because Congress may not like it if they're trying to go around the rules, but hopefully it's true. And finally, Turkish election. The Turkish election was last week. Big deal for Ukraine because Erdogan could lose, but he could win against an opposition leader who is friendlier to Europe, friendlier to democracy, etc., friendlier to NATO, friendlier to Ukraine. I should say more unfriendly to Russia. So in principle, friendlier to Ukraine. But neither party got more than 50% of the vote. And when that happens, you have because there were multiple candidates, right? So nobody reached 50%. They're going to have a new election next Sunday. Should be next. Yes, next Sunday. And of only the top two candidates, Erdogan and the opposition leader. Fingers crossed, but who knows? He may still be able to pull it off. All right, that is it for the news of the week. Let's do some questions, y'all, if you got them. Otherwise, I'm going to go put on some pizza in the oven. NBD, no big deal. 3 billion. Okay, well, 3 billion's good. I mean, 3 billion's very good. F-16s cost 63 million each, I believe I read. So, well, and it might be. I mean, we may have overestimated everything. I hope we did. Honestly, I totally hope we did. Which pizza? Not going to tell you because it's a local pizzeria that we go to around the block. And if I tell you, then you're going to know where my mom lives. And unfortunately, I do so much politics. I've done so much politics over the years that I worry about the trolls, the left-wing trolls, but also the right-wing trolls. So that's the only reason I won't say. But Chicago, the neat thing about Chicago is quite literally each suburb has got 5 or 7 really good pizzerias. We must have, oh God, there must be at least 5 in this town. And I mean, we're talking, these are towns between 30 and 80,000 people, and they've got like 5 to die for pizzerias. So yeah. Don't those Patriot missiles cost a lot? Yes, they do. Like 2 million wait a minute. Is the Patriots or the Storm Shadows? Are the Patriots? I'm getting them mixed up now. All of them are in the millions though. The Patriot batteries are like $1 billion, I believe. Each Patriot missile, is it $1 million each? Hold on. Let me see if I can get the answer. How much does each Patriot missile cost?
Here's an answer from strategiepage.com.
Yeah, the current
version of the original
costs $2 million each.
Design.
Yeah.
140 pack 2 cost $2 million each and can be used against aircraft and some missiles.
Yeah, and the smaller
pack 3 MEM 104F.
Right.
Anti-missile can only be used against missiles and can cost.
Yeah, I think they've got the one that's both the pack 2, I think. So it's 2 million. Yeah, 2 million each. And I want to say the Storm Shadows were the Storm Shadows weren't 2 billion each. No. Were they 2 billion? The Storm Shadows the cruise missiles were an incredible amount. Hold on. How much does a Storm Shadow cruise missile cost? Was it 2 billion?
Here's what I found.
Oh, each missile is 2 million, so it's the same. Oh, that's funny. It's the exact. That's why I was getting the numbers confused. It's the exact same. So the Storm Shadow cruise missiles and the Patriot missiles cost the same. Yeah. They're not reusable. No. I mean, they go boom, they blow up. Now, the missile systems, meaning the Patriot missile system is an entire system, right? Radar, launchers, everything else, all of that's reusable, of course. It's just the missiles themselves that get blown up and they're gone. But 2 million each, it depends. Are you blowing up a $50 or $100 million Russian fighter jet with it? Right? Boom. Are you blowing up Russian generals? Boom. Right? I mean, it depends. $2 million is worth it to blow up Russia. Are you blowing up a bunker that has 500 Russian troops in it? Right? Is that worth 2 million? I mean, that's the issue, No, Stewie, I mean, the problem is Stewie, it's an interesting question. Stewie says if the U.S. goes to war with Russia and Russia commits war crimes, would you support the U.S. committing war crimes back? No. I mean, generally speaking, no. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, you want the world on your side. You want the allies on your side. You don't want to lose support from people. I mean, there's practical reasons, right? You don't want to lose support from people. Second of all, look at the stuff Russia does. It's just not the stuff I would want to condone, right? Rape and murder, no. Blowing up civilian apartment buildings, no. You know what I mean? I just can't. The only time that I become sympathetic on things like that, I've discussed this before publicly. It's a hard thing to discuss, though, because you're trying to be very careful. And I actually brought this up as a question. I was recently helping do the oral exams at the graduate program at Georgetown Foreign Service School, where I went to get my graduate degree, my master's. Big international relations school here internationally, actually, in the States. Some say the top. Hopkins folks might disagree, but we think it's the top. And one of the questions I was asking them, because we were like an hour of grilling them about the world and Ukraine, I had the Ukraine panel especially, and I was grilling them on one of the things I brought up was terrorism. I was like, is terrorism ever justified? And of course, initially people want to go no, but when they think about it, I said, well, and I sort of said Middle East, Israel, no. Like they were very, very much didn't believe in terrorism as Israel. I said, okay. And I said, okay, but what if, and I say terrorism because you're talking war crimes, right? I said, what if the 1980s, what if the Soviets did invade America? What if the Soviets actually managed to invade and take over part of the country? What if you had, if you've ever watched the Man in the High Castle or whatever it's called show, which is very good, which is a scenario of the Japanese and the Germans, the Nazis taking over America after basically the Germans got the bomb first and they nuked Washington, New York, whatever. And America had to give in, and the Germans and the Japanese ended up taking America. So you're literally in an occupation, right? America's occupied by the Nazis, or America's occupied by the Soviets. Then are you against terrorism? Then are you against bombs in civilian buildings, bombs in supermarkets that the Soviet military families use? Right. I mean, and it was funny. It was very interesting, the answers I got. I mean, that's the only reason I say it's an interesting question if you start to put it in other categories. Right. But in general, no, because it's also not clear it's helpful anyway. I mean, in Ukraine, what advantage are they getting out of it? They're bombing civilians. It's not helping. You know what I mean? It's not like the Ukrainians are caving, and it's not helping their military. And honestly, it's wasting a lot of weapons too, which isn't terribly smart either. Like, why wouldn't you save those weapons for the counteroffensive, the missiles and everything else? But anyway, I think it's an interesting question because you do get into a very interesting situation, like you said, if you're desperate. And again, Middle East, that becomes a gray area, because I'm also not convinced it's the same situation in the Middle East. I tend to be very pro-Israel, but I'm very in the middle at the same time. Palestinians have gotten a bad deal. Israelis have gotten a bad deal, which young people today don't remember. Those of us my age remember that, the reason the Israelis are the way they are today, which is a bit too extreme, but the reason they are the way they are today is because the Palestinians have been blowing up their babies for the last 70 years. So, people do that to you and you end up saying, you know what? I'm going to get a little strict with you the next time you do it. So you got to keep that in mind, that's been going back and forth, and both sides have been doing it, frankly, to each other. But it's a little more complicated than Netanyahu's an idiot, mind you. That's a whole other issue. He's a total idiot, and he is fascist, lunatic, etc. But he took advantage, actually, not unlike Trump in some ways, he took advantage of the situation for his own extreme agenda. But in any case, that's what I'm saying. So Israel, much more complicated for me, but I think a more obvious situation like just that, the Russians take over part of America, or we lost World War II, or even Europe, you lose World War II, or even hell, you're World War II in Europe, period, right? The Nazis control Paris, or the Nazis control wherever, one of your towns. Do you set bombs to go after the soldiers? Yes. If there were stores set up just for the Nazis, for getting all their German stuff that their families went to shopping, would you blow it up to get them out of your town? I would, actually. So I'm sure some people would say no. I would. All right. That was a long answer. Sorry. Beep, 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 beep. What else you got here, guys? Do a little bit more. I try to not to go too much over an hour. We got 6 more minutes. More questions. Yeah, I mean, honestly, now is not the time for Ukraine to be worrying about same-sex marriage, same-sex marriage, Joanna. I mean, I've been a long time gay rights advocate. Now is not the time. I mean, I just feel like, yeah, people should, now is, I just think now is the time to marshal the country, agree on everything, and get the war won. I would also say too, don't divide. I really, and I say this as a gay rights advocate, but don't divide people right now. I just think it's on any issue. I wouldn't get into climate change. I wouldn't get into any issue right now that risks dividing people, you know? So glad if they can do it, but not if it's controversial. There's no point. Um, what else? Well, we all got unverified on Twitter. Yeah. Musk. Oh, aren't you aware of what's going on with that, Stewie? Musk unverified everybody. Everybody got unverified. He took it away from everybody. He did a new verification for like business and government, big businesses and government, mind you. Everyone else got unverified. And then he took the actual verification we all had, which was the blue check. And that was a verification because you had done something notable, you are notable, somebody might try to steal your identity, etc. You're an authority, etc. And gave it to anybody willing to pay $8. So now all the blue checks on Twitter are, and he keeps calling it verification, are literally people who paid $8. That's it. There's nothing. And honestly, most of them are trolls now. Like you can tell, it's funny. Most of the anti-Ukraine stuff, the crazy COVID and Ukraine, you look at the crazy stuff and you literally click through their bio and go blue check. So that's why he did it to everybody. I mean, did it to everybody. That was like, boom. Yeah. So that's why he's nuts. He's out of his mind. He's out of his mind. Yeah. No, that's a whole other discussion on Elon. I'd never followed him closely. I was one of those who was impressed from afar, thought he was kooky, but was impressed. And watching him the last year in particular, once this started with this TikTok thing, I mean, he took it over in November, but it was like April of last year that we knew he was coming. He's a nut job. He's a liar and he's a nut job. He's got the maturity of a 14-year-old boy. And he's crazy. He's a conspiracy theorist. He's not very good at what he did, and he's a liar. That's the thing that really bothered me. He's just a liar about everything. He's like Trump. I mean, I don't mean to get political on the Trump thing, but whatever you think of Trump, he just lies all the time. Elon lies. There's nothing. The Russians, anything the Russians say about the war, they're lying. Elon's the same thing. There isn't a single thing this man says. He's crazy, unfortunately. But what do you do? Oh yeah, and the business. Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I forgot about that too. Yeah, the business check marks cost like $1,000 a month. Oh, my favorite. Oh, this was great. And I mean, I looked it up. It's real. I went to the TikTok rules and found it. For the business check marks, you have to apply. And you apply for the business check mark to say, I'm a legitimate business. TikTok reviews it. And if TikTok, and you got to pay your $1,000. If TikTok disagrees and says, no, we don't think you're a legitimate business, they keep your $1,000. It literally says, somebody posted it and I was like, okay, this has got to be a hoax, right? Photoshop, whatever. I went and I found the not TikTok. Did I say TikTok again? Twitter. I keep saying TikTok. I'm sorry. Twitter. I went and found the Twitter rules. And there it is. And it says, yes, if a business applies for verification and we decide that you don't merit it for whatever reason, we will not refund your money. Why wouldn't you refund the money? I mean, what kind of idiocy is that? Not to mention, actually, you shouldn't even ask for the money, like verified. And if you accept it, you say you've been accepted and your verification will be turned on as soon as we receive your payment, right? But no, he's a nut job. Yeah, Elon's peace plan for Ukraine. I forgot about all that. That's true. Yeah, he's an idiot. I know it's very sad. It's just very sad. Anyway, well, here's the question. Otanbot says, are the Ukrainians allowed to use U.S. weapons to target objects in Russian airspace? We don't know. I mean, Biden said, or this weekend, or somebody said that Zelensky promised the U.S. that he would not be using F-16s inside Russia. So that would mean the planes can't enter Russian territory. We don't know if that means the planes, because F-16s can fire missiles that can either attack air targets, planes, etc., missiles, whatever, or ground targets, right, buildings, etc. We don't know. Does that mean F-16s can't enter Russian airspace, or F-16s can't blow up missiles and planes in Russian airspace, or I don't know, anti-missile batteries or something else, SAM missile batteries, whatever, on the ground in Russia. We don't know. The issue with the Patriot missiles. Did they use a Patriot missile to blow up these 4 planes in Russia? Can they? Can Ukraine use the Patriot missile battery, meaning would the U.S. allow it, to blow up, in this case, 4 planes that are coming from Russia to bomb Ukraine? That's clearly their purpose. That's why they're flying in. Would the U.S. say, no, you can't, you can't attack them until they cross the Ukrainian border? Maybe. And maybe being in the air is different. I mean, my guess would be for the F-16, they probably would say too that my guess is planes in the sky. Actually, then the lawyer in me always likes to find examples. Planes in the sky, can you shoot down? Maybe. But my guess is the rules of engagement for the U.S. would be it has to be something actively attacking Ukraine for you to hit it if it's in Russia. You can't enter Russia. If it's a plane bombing Ukraine, you can attack the plane, right? Send a missile into Russia to get the plane. If it's a missile battery shooting into Ukraine, you can send a missile back to hit the battery on the ground that is actively firing at you or just fired at you, right? So there's things like that I could see them doing. But we don't know. I think we just don't know. Ufnak, on the subject of shooting things into Orc airspace, do you remember the 5 or so planes that were boomed last week? Do you think it was the Patriot? That's what we were talking about. Yeah. There was talk about, I did mention it earlier. Yeah. Thanks, Andy. But we don't know. There was an article in the New York Times that had a mention that said something about the Ukrainians, or say they even knocked out a plane using the Patriot. And we all went, a plane? And some of the defense guys think that the Ukrainians may have moved a Patriot missile battery to the border with Russia, knowing this was the flight path the Russians take when they do their bombing runs, and they literally moved it to the border, knowing the Russians wouldn't expect it, waited until the planes were in range, turned the Patriot missiles on, because also, you don't want the Russians to hit the battery, and it took out all of them, and then, of course, picked it up and moved it as quickly as they could. Patriot missiles batteries are not easy to move, but very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah. So who knows? But I was saying, knowing the Ukrainians, I wouldn't be surprised, right? I mean, they're exactly the kind of people who would come up with something kooky. Like, let's move the battery secretly to the border and use it as an offensive weapon. That's amazing, right? All right, guys, I think I'm going to wrap up here. Anybody who's watching who's new, welcome. Do follow me, or whatever one calls it. I think you say follow on. I'm still new to Twitch. I mean, I've been using Twitch for a while, but I'm finally digging in to learn it better. But do follow me on Twitch if you would. If the spirit moves you to subscribe, please do. Certainly, at the very least, if you can use your Amazon Prime to subscribe and follow me, I would appreciate it. But also just to subscribe generally, because I do this for free and I do it full time. So your guys' support would be good for that. I also probably do need to put up a link. Well, actually, you know what? I forgot. I can give it to you right here. My page of links. My link to my page of links is aravosis.com. That is my Linktree link. So everything's there. My Discord's there. My PayPal, my Venmo, my Cash App, you name it. Everything's there. I know verbs are hard. Everything's there. You can check it out if you want to support my work that way. Again, Discord, the Discord community. We've got a good Discord community too. We got about 2,000 people now, a number of regulars, and I'm there every day. Oh, thank you, SB. Yeah, that's sort of the way to do it for the Amazon Prime. Actually, I'll try to save that too, so I've got it for one of the future lives that I bring it up. But check it out. As I said, Discord's cool too. You can join the Discord community for free. You can also join it and be a paid subscriber, which is very cool, which helps me out a lot too. But anyway, just check it out if you like the work. All right, guys, I'm going to sign off. I won't do the summary here. We do that for the other show. But I will be here every weekend, typically 1 p.m. Eastern time for my weekend review, exclusively on Twitch. And there you go. All right. Thanks for coming, guys. I appreciate a number of you hung out the whole time, which is great. And do subscribe again. And I will see you all next week. But also Monday, tomorrow I pick up Monday to Friday, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US, on TikTok, same account, Aravosis, and on YouTube at John Aravosis DC, because YouTube makes it hard. But you can find those accounts there. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, SB, Cobra, the rest of you, Otan, Chris, Jens, I'm not going to name, there's 28 of you. I'm not going to name you all. But thank you guys. I appreciate it. And I will see you. I know a lot of you I recognize. I'll see you during the week. Okay. Thanks everybody for showing up. Appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye. Oops. Where's my, oops. There it is. There it is. I was trying to find where my thing was here. All right. See you guys.